Hey, everybody, what's going on? Welcome back to another episode of the Gridiron Uncensored podcast. Trevor and myself tonight, and we're just trying to get you guys ready and prepped for this 2024 season. As we've alluded to many times last year, it's a whole new world, baby. 12, new conferences, 12-team playoff. Last week, we talked about the toughest schedules across the board from, the Power Five. Well, really, it's the Power Four now, which is going to be strange to get used to. So if I say Power Five, you know what the hell I mean. Okay, it's a Power Four and then the Group of Five. We hit on those guys, and now we're going to get into the easiest schedules and who might have the easiest roads to the playoffs, especially with it being a 12 team now. There's a lot more teams that have a chance. Lot of teams that if they just do what they need to do, they could get in those at-large bids, or hell, even the first team we're talking about, they might even win the damn conference with this schedule. So we got a lot to talk about tonight. I'm excited for it, and it's just getting us ready for the 2024 season previews. Trev, you want to hit on this number one?
Yes, sir. Yeah. Because I know we both have the same one and probably the same two, actually.
Yeah.
And, to start us off tonight, we're going to go with the easiest schedule in the NCAA 2024 season goes to the wonderful Kansas Jayhawks. It's really, really quite easy, folks. With a
Yeah.
returning, very talented Jalen Daniels. They start their campaign off with Lindenwood, at
Yeah.
Illinois, UNLV, excuse me, at Arizona State, Baylor, at BYU, Colorado, TCU, Houston, Iowa State. You guys can stop me if you find any challenging games so far. At Kansas State, that might be a tough one, but and at West Virginia. I mean, Brendan, I don't know what else to say other than that. If they don't make it to the Big 12 championship, then it would be a failure on just about every level.
Yeah, man. And for me, I like their coaching staff. I like what they've got at Kansas. Again, like you said, I look at their schedule and the way it plays out with the way their bye weeks land too. Their first 6 games are really manageable. The only one that really might throw a wrench in it is West Virginia, but with Neil Brown and them, I don't trust them. I know the West Virginia fans got a little excited last season. Again, like we've kind of forewarned on here already, be careful. But either way, West Virginia seems like a very winnable game to me. The Kansas State one is really the only one that I see that's like, hey, it's Kansas State. It's a rivalry game, but what is Kansas State going to be this season? They've lost a lot of talent, but I like their coaching staff too. So that's really it. After that, they could still lose one game and be right there for the conference championship talk.
Yeah, I think even if they were a 2-loss team in Kansas, I think that they would still find a way, maybe on the back end. Don't get me wrong, they may be on the back end, but I mean, if they win the conference championship, they're in. So that's all they got to do is make it to the chip and then win it, and then they're fine.
Yeah,
but I think that you're right with Kansas State mainly because of the rivalry game, mostly. I mean, with Will Howard gone, you just don't know. But Illinois is an interesting game for me because they did get beat by Kansas last year. So they might be some extra motivation. And Illinois, I mean, they still have a lot of good talent on that team where it could present a problem for a Big 12 team that is looking at a very cupcake schedule.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, Illinois could be a problem. Revenge, like you said, from last season. But it's again, it is a Big Ten team, which you got to be ready for. But I don't know. It is in Illinois too, so Champaign's a funky place to play. But yeah, when you look at the back end of the schedule for Kansas, though, finishing with Colorado, Baylor, I mean, they could be sitting really pretty. I know we don't know what the hell Colorado is again either. Okay, we got to get more into that. But yeah, I'm seeing this as the easiest schedule in the NCAA. I think, and like we said, we do this. We look at all the schedules, and then we kind of go and see, man, what's the national pundits saying? What else? Yeah, they're right online with us. Okay, So hey, you can trust what we say. Okay, we know more than some of these people. I'm telling you that. Let's talk about the number 2 easiest team and why maybe it's number 2 as opposed to number 1.
Right. Well, the way I'm seeing it is that it's Cincy, and I think you have the same one on yours, correct?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, Cincy for me as well. And look, at the end of the day, Cincinnati Bearcat fans, you can sleep easy for this 2024 season, unless you are concerned about the whole Cincinnati program in general. Then it's a problem. But this is not in any particular order, but the schedule kind of is. These are the teams that are on the wonderful Bearcats schedule this season. Towson, Pitt, Miami University, Arizona State, at UCF, TCU, at Colorado, at Iowa State, Houston, West Virginia, at Kansas State, and at Texas Tech. And that one last one that I just named out there, Texas Tech, that is the single most reason why they are number 2 instead of number 1 for me. Is that that is literally the only real team on this schedule outside of maybe Kansas State for me. So it was Illinois and Kansas State for Kansas, and it's Kansas State and Texas Tech. And I just think those pair of games on their schedule is just tougher than Kansas's.
Yeah, and for me, it's the Pitt game's a little, Pitt again wasn't very good last year. And like you mentioned, for Cincinnati, thank God for them because they had a horrible record last year at 3-9. So hopefully this maybe can get them kickstarted again. After not too long ago, they were in the damn playoffs. But yeah, you got Townsend, Pitt, Miami, Houston, and like you said, the Texas Tech game right before a bye week, and then going to UCF. That's kind of, for me, what makes it a little bit tougher than Kansas's schedule. But they still do also have West Virginia, which again, we don't. I'm not really feeling them. I like Garrett Green, but I'm just a coaching staff. I still just don't trust them.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Satterfield anyway.
Yeah,
to be perfectly honest with you.
Man,
it is what it is.
Yeah, I don't know about old West Virginia, but Kansas State, again, who are they? That looks to be the toughest game on the schedule. But again, we don't know how the Avery Johnson experiment is going to play out. But they still easy schedule. If they pull it together and they figure out how to, get this thing going, because they had 33rd ranked offense last year, 93rd defense. If they can just pull some stuff together, they might have a pretty decent route here. So I don't know. We'll see about Cincy. Trev, third team. What you got, buddy? This is where we differ a little bit.
So this is where we're going to fall off a little bit. So I went a little different route, and most of the people that watch this show will call me a hater because I have hated on this team pretty much all season long, mostly because of their quarterback. But if you don't know, that is the North Carolina Tar Heels.
He hates them.
I'm not a fan of them. I'm not a fan of their coach. I'm not a fan of I really do not like Mac Brown, and I don't like the North Carolina Tar Heels. But I'll just rattle off the games that they have on their schedule, not in any particular order. It's at Minnesota, Charlotte, North Carolina Central, JMU, at Boston College. Excuse me. Sorry.
It's all good.
At Duke, at Florida State, Georgia Tech, North Carolina State, Pitt, Wake Forest, and at Virginia. Those are just a list of games. It's not in any particular order. And that's certainly not in the game order in which the weekly order. But that being said, it's actually kind of it's very easy schedule. However, they do have Florida State and a Minnesota team that I'm actually kind of high on, actually, with what they've done in the offseason and everything like that. I think that will be a very tough game for this North Carolina team with breaking in a quarterback and everything like that and just transitioning from pedestrian quarterback play.
See you later, Drake May.
But I mean, all in all, I mean, it actually probably, I would say it is a little bit tougher schedule, but yeah, I don't think it is on the level of Cincy and or Kansas.
Yeah, I've got them down further. They're not inside of my top 10, but they're in the okay. This is a favorable schedule the way it lays out. Like you said, the Minnesota game to start the season. That's again, it's a Big Ten team. You have to be prepared. Even though they lost Callie McManus, Minnesota did. They still have a solid team. The coach rowing the boat, the whole 9 yards. But they do. They get James Madison, which is going to be pretty much a shell of itself, like you said. Duke, new coaching staff. They brought in some stuff from the transfer portal, so we'll see how Manny Diaz does down there. But then after that, really, that should be a pretty easy beginning. But then you get Florida State after Virginia, which Virginia's maybe could be a little danger team in the ACC, but not really. And then again, Florida State, NC State though finishing out. So really, it's not that tough, and you'll see that when we go through most of these. It's the ACC and the Big 12 run most of the ship on this easiest schedule talk.
Mhm.
So man,
So wait. So I know you said you differed from me on UNC.
Yeah.
So where were you looking at?
Me, I've got them in that like 11 to 12 range.
Wait, 11 or 12 down the road? Like,
yeah.
oh,
I've
okay.
got my
So
three is
there? Who's your three? Syracuse. Okay.
Yeah.
I see that.
Yeah, looking at them, and you've got Ohio, Georgia Tech, a bye week, and then Stanford, Holy Cross, UNLV, and then you play NC State, which is a tough team. But then you get a bye week, and then you go into Pitt, which I don't really value them too much right now. Virginia Tech's a wild card. If they can put it together, yeah, they'll be better. But then Miami's another one that I don't really trust. I don't trust Cristobal. So I've kind of got them like, I've got them at one of the easiest schedules in the country.
Yeah. Okay.
Especially the way it lays out. The way it lays out too. But
all right.
yeah.
So that makes sense to me. So you got that. You got Syracuse there.
Yeah, I got Syracuse up there. UNC's down. I've got them as my first favorable, like, hey, this team, I don't know what the hell they're going to do, but if they find a way, they've got a really favorable road.
Okay.
Moving forward. Who you got next?
Well, I got NC State. Does that match up?
Actually, I don't have NC State at all.
Really? Okay. Well, then I got to make a case. Then I've got to make a case.
Let's hear it. I want to see what you got to say.
All right.
Because I looked at them. I'm like, I don't know. I don't think so.
Okay. So I'm just going to rattle off the games again, like I've been doing. So Western Carolina, Tennessee, Charlotte, Louisiana Tech, NIU, at Cal, at Clemson, Duke, Stanford, at Georgia Tech, Wake Forest, Syracuse, and North Carolina. So if we're going off of what Brendan just said about Syracuse, and then we're going off of North Carolina's easy schedule, and I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that this schedule outside of Clemson, there is not a tough game on their schedule outside of Clemson.
You don't think Tennessee is going to be tough?
Tennessee, Charlotte.
No, it's the Vols. They're playing in Charlotte.
Oh, well, either way, I don't think they'll be tough.
Yeah, that's fair. That's totally fair.
It's a neutral site. I don't think Tennessee performs nearly as well than if they were in Knoxville.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
And NC State, honestly, I know they have an easy schedule, but that does not speak to my opinion about the team. I think NC State is probably one of my favorite teams in the SEC as far as potential to shock a lot of people in the ACC and the college football world in general.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you on that. They're a team to watch out for, and I like what they've done in the portal and everything.
And I'm not 100% sold on Nico at Tennessee either. And that's my thing. Is like, I know he's flashy and everything like that. He could be a very good quarterback, and I could be eating my own words by the time the season comes around. But I don't know. Clemson and Tennessee, while they're going to be tough games, no doubt about it. I don't think Tennessee is as tough as Clemson is right now. Yeah. Especially being at Clemson. The game being in Clemson is a little different than a neutral site. And actually Tennessee, but it's in Charlotte. That's actually might as well just call it home turf for NC State.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely can. I can get with you on the neutral site thing. I Tennessee to me is kind of like the wow, Kansas State style. Like, what are they going to be with Nico? And I mean, I think they showed pretty well against a strong defense in Iowa. But again, Iowa's offense is so bad, so it's kind of hard to say. But when you look at everybody else, they did do better than other teams. So I don't know. It'll be interesting. The way that I've got them in a favorable, they're not in my top 10, NC State, but they're in the favorable column for me. Like, if this team does exactly what they should do, based on everything, their toughest game is Clemson. I will agree with that. And then Tennessee's the other one. But it's like, if you can get through those two teams, or even just 1-1 them, I mean, you're going to squeak into the playoff. Because yeah, you got Stanford, Duke. They're definitely an easier schedule. But I've got a couple ones that are easier in my opinion. Just because I value that Tennessee game just a little bit more. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm curious to see who's your fifth team, or let's see, would it be fourth team? Where are we at?
We're on number 4, but who
Okay.
do you have in that spot? Who do you have in that spot?
I've got Pitt. I've got Pitt up there.
I could see that. They're on my list. They're just not quite that high up on my list.
Yeah, I had to throw Pitt up there just because I was like, no, sorry, boys. That's looking.
See, I
that's
mean, looking at Pitt's schedule in my mind, I'm like, Pitt could be so awful that could actually be a tough schedule for them.
That's true. I mean, it's very true.
So it's very hard with some of these teams, especially like after I get past probably 5, then the teams become a little bit more like, God, are they going to be any good? Are they going to even have the moxie to just get through the season?
Yeah.
Even if it is a somewhat soft schedule, is it even going to be enough to just have a soft schedule? But my number 5 might shock a lot of people, but it is Utah.
Okay.
Utah is my number 5. And the reason I really picked them is because once again, when I look at it, it's literally Arizona and maybe Okie State.
Yeah.
And that's it. And I don't even consider necessarily Okie State a problem for Utah because of how well they play defense and how disciplined they usually are on the defensive side of the ball, where usually Oklahoma State does a lot of motion and tries to confuse the defenses a lot of the time with all the spread and the air raid offense that they have. And just when I look at this, so I'll just rattle these off real quick. Southern Utah, Baylor, at Utah State, at Arizona State, Arizona at home, which is nice, at Colorado, BYU, at Houston, TCU, at Okie State, at UCF, Iowa State. I feel like this schedule, because of the caliber of team that I believe the Utah is going to field, I think that they are actually going to. You know what? I'll save that for like when we move forward to the next part of this. But this schedule lines up with them, and I would almost venture to say that Utah and Kansas are probably going to end up being in the Big 12 championship if everything plays out as it should.
Well, like you're talking about it too, the odds makers, which to me, I would feel like Oklahoma State would be higher up in the tiers for who could win the Big 12 championship or who will be in it, but they're not. They're down at like 8, which is really surprising to me. But no, I'm with you on the Utah schedule. I've got them at 8 personally.
Okay, we're closer. We're getting closer. We're getting closer.
It's just because of how it lays out with it being so early in the season. If with the Oklahoma State and Arizona back to back, I feel like that if you screw those up and you just get in yourself, your feels and all that crap, you could really shit the bed somewhere else.
And that's assuming that Arizona we know Fafita and we know the wideout. That's pretty much all we really know about them. And with them having a new coach, you kind of think that you're going to get the same team or the same type of performance that they did last year.
Yeah.
But there's no guarantees. Not in this world.
Super unknowns. And again, they were able to keep most of their team together.
They were.
Again, like you said, it's a new coach. how are they going to handle it?
Mhm.
And they're another one in my top 10 with an easy schedule that they might be able to work out some kinks and get it going. So yeah, I've got Utah at 8 just because of the way it folds out. But they've got a pretty easy road. And like you said, with Cam Rising coming back, Southern Utah, you're going to be a test dummy, just getting him going. You see, they're first on the list, and then Baylor, God help you.
Yeah.
We'll see how Baylor does this
But
season.
look, that's the best thing about college football, folks, is that you legitimately do not know week to week, even if it's Baylor. Baylor could just play out of their minds and upset Utah, and it throws a whole monkey wrench into
They could.
everything.
They could. I mean, last year was stupid. I mean, it was
Yep.
one score game between now quarterback situation pending, but
Yeah.
it's still who knows? Who knows
Yep.
what Cam Rising is going to be after this injury?
So who do you have at number 5, Brennan?
So for me at number 5, I have SMU, and I looked at
Okay.
theirs, and it's not that it's easy for them, but I like what you said there because some of these teams might just be so bad that it's a tough schedule. And I agree. And our friend Jacob has mentioned something like that with the rankings. But for me, I'm just looking at it flat on these teams. They've got Nevada, HCU, Huskies, which I don't even know who the hell that is. That's an FCS team. Sorry, I don't follow that. BYU, and then you get a bye week before TCU. So that's a rivalry game. And then you got Florida State. Louisville, they're in there, but I just don't know how Louisville is going to be. I got to dig more into them. But then you got Stanford, Duke, Pitt, Boston College, Virginia, and Cal. To me, I mean, it's a solid SMU team. It's a pretty decent schedule for them. Florida State, I think you chalked up as the immediate loss, but I don't know. It's an interesting one. So I threw them up a little bit higher, probably than I should, but that's just how I was feeling.
All
baby.
I know is I'm rooting for him. I'm rooting for him to wreck house in the ACC.
I am too, man. People are shitting all over SMU right now because the rumors that the ACC is going to blow up, and hey, I want to see chaos. I want to see SMU.
I want to see SMU blow the whole thing to smithereens. I want to see it happen.
I want it to nuke, man. Oh man. So I got them at 5. Who do you have at 6 or you did top 5? Top 10?
I did 10. I did 10.
Okay.
I did 10. We're good. We're good.
6?
So this is going to be an unpopular one. But
I want to hear it.
Maybe it might be, maybe not. Maybe people will agree. But I went with the Hokies.
Okay, yeah.
I went with the Hokies on this one.
Yeah.
And my main thing is it kind of falls in line with the way I felt about NC State, and that they don't really run into a whole lot. Rutgers could be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Both you and I have had conversations about Rutgers, and that they could be a very surprise Big Ten team this year.
Yes.
They have Virginia. They get at Duke and at Miami. That's a little bit of a tough little deal there, having both of those games away.
Yeah.
And then Clemson, and then that's it. That's it for me. It's Miami. Really, it's Miami, Rutgers, and Clemson. So they have 3 what I view as tough, like legitimately tough games that they'll have to play. Outside of that, I feel like it's manageable. They have Vanderbilt, Marshall at Old Dominion, snooze fest, Virginia, and then at Stanford, so they get a vacation out in Cali. So that's the way I view the Hokie schedule right there.
I'm with you, and maybe I'm shitting on Miami because their fan base is just such a bunch of little whiny babies, man. They are so pissy on Twitter.
They're living in 2001 right now,
bro. I swear, man. So I don't know. I just don't value them, but yeah, I've got Virginia Tech at 7. Like you said, all the reasons you laid out. Rutgers is an interesting one. The Miami game, how is Cam Ward going to be there? And then Clemson's to me the hardest game. But man, I've got them at 7. Miami though, I've got them at 6. I've got Miami down at 6. And
you have Miami at 6. Okay.
I don't value Florida. I'm sorry, Florida. I know first game of the season. So I don't like them. I don't trust them. and then Virginia Tech again is a toss up, but then you got Florida State, Louisville, maybe. But Louisville to me is just like last year they got up there, they got to the championship game, but I think they got proven to be fraudulent. So I want to see how they do this year. But Miami's, I got them up one above Virginia Tech, and maybe it's just because I'm hating on them. But to me, it's that Clemson game for Virginia Tech bumps them back just a little bit for me. But yeah, I've got so Miami at 6, Virginia Tech at 7. Who's your 7?
Virginia Tech at 7. Well, I know this is going to be an unpopular one because it's the only team that I have in my top 10 that's not a part of the ACC and Big 12.
Okay, I'm interested.
So I have Missouri.
Oh, snap, bro. That's
I have Missouri at 7.
That's spicy.
It is spicy, right?
Now, I've seen people say they have a super easy schedule, and when I look at it, I feel a little bit differently, but I do have them in the favorable category. So I want to hear your thoughts on.
So here's my thoughts on this is that first of all, I want to say this so I'm very clear. I do not think Oklahoma is a top tier SEC school.
Yeah.
As it stands right this second, in what I've seen and what I've looked at with Oklahoma, I think that they are mid-tier at best, slightly above Auburn and South Carolina.
Okay.
That's where I view Oklahoma at. So that's where if when you look at their schedule, just understand that's where I'm coming from when I'm looking at Oklahoma. So, and Texas A&M ain't no, like, yeah, well, I'll get into that in a second. But I'm just going to rattle off the games that they have on their schedule. Murray State, Buffalo, Boston College, and Vandy. All easily winnable games.
Yeah.
Because of what we already know that Missouri has coming back, it's all those 4 are 4-0 right there, easy. At Texas A&M, that's a snooze fest. Missouri's going to dog walk them all the way out of their stadium.
Snap, baby. Dog walking.
Yeah, they're going to dog walk them. At UMass, they can play the third strings in that one. Auburn also can play their third strings on that one. At Alabama is the first tough game as far as I can tell. Oklahoma could be tough, but like I said, I view them in the same breath as Auburn and South Carolina, they have them at South Carolina, at Mississippi State, and then Arkansas. Yeah. So when you look at it from my lens and the way I'm looking at it, really it's Alabama and then everybody else.
Yeah.
Alabama's the tough game and everybody else. I guess you could make an argument that Oklahoma's the other tough game because I do think they are better than Texas A&M and everyone else on the schedule. So it's probably Alabama and Oklahoma, but it's really, this schedule doesn't really separate itself too far from NC State's schedule where they have Tennessee and Clemson on it.
Yeah.
In my view, although I do think that Alabama's better than Clemson, I don't think that Oklahoma's much better, if not the same level as Tennessee. Yeah. So I mean, when I'm looking at that way, and these other teams, I mean, Auburn and South Carolina probably are coming off of they're both coming off of horrendous seasons in 2023. Yeah. So Mississippi State, hopefully they can rebound. In Arkansas is an interesting one to me with Bobby Petrino returning to Arkansas. And I don't know what to think about Arkansas at this point, to be perfectly honest with you. So
I'm with you on them.
But yeah, I mean, you already covered that the Hokies are your 7. So I guess if you want to, we can roll into your 8 and then we'll see how I view it.
Yeah. So Miami 6, Virginia Tech 7. I'll say one thing on Mizzou is I've got 17 teams written down as easy schedules. Some not obviously outside the top 10 for easiest, but favorable. So I'll talk about Mizzou here in a little bit. My number 8 was Utah. That's where I had the Utes. Super,
That's
to me, super favorable. I'd say, yeah, easy schedule to get to that Big 10 or Big 12 championship game in year one of the new conference. Again, just the way it's laid out is why I have it, a little bit higher on the difficulty scale than where you had them. What was your 8 again?
Well, my 8 is actually Arizona.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where I had Arizona fall on mine.
We're
And
not far off. We're not far off.
yeah, no, we're coming back together. Coming back together. But no, I mean Arizona. I mean they're a solid team, and I like their schedule and the way it looks. I'll rattle off the games real quick. New Mexico, Northern Arizona, at Kansas State, at Utah, Arizona State, Houston at BYU, Colorado at TCU, Texas Tech at home, West Virginia at home, and at UCF. Now, when I look at this schedule, now I'm looking at it, I'm thinking about how I've talked about all these teams. Maybe this could have been higher on my list.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really Texas Tech and well, that's about Kansas State. Yeah, Texas Tech and Kansas State again. And they got Utah at Utah,
Right.
which kind of adds another layer of difficulty to their schedule. So yeah, I mean that's where I sit with Arizona. I think they have a really good opportunity to do a lot of damage in the Big 12 and definitely has an opportunity to make it to the Big 12 championship for sure. There's about 2 or 3 teams on this top 10 list, honestly, that probably have a legitimate chance to have a good enough record to go to the chip.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's why I cannot wait for us to get more into the previews and really digging into these teams. Because again, we're just looking at these, topically kind of what they were last year, what they lost, and just how the schedule lays out. But again, we're going to dig more into how these teams, what they picked up, what they lost, projections, all that good stuff. We're going to get into all that down the line as we get closer to the season. Spring ball is just going, boys and girls. So cut us some slack, Jay. We're just watching and waiting to see what the hell this spring portal does too. But yeah, I've got Arizona at 10 personally. Same reason the Kansas State game again. What are they? Utah though. That to me knocks them back. That's going to be a tough game, especially because like you mentioned, Trevor, can Arizona be what they were last season without their starting running back, and then also without Jedd Fisch? It's obviously to be seen, but when it lays out the way that it does, you have Kansas State first, and then a bye week, and then Utah. That's a tough little stretch right there. But thankfully for the bye week, you can maybe rest up and figure out, hey, if you blow it to Kansas State, what can we do better against Utah? But then you go into it, the rest of the schedule plays out super nice. Texas Tech and West Virginia really the only ones that I see. Maybe TCU depending on what they do. But again, easy schedule in the grand scheme of things. Who is your number 9?
My number 9 is the horribly pedestrian Pittsburgh Panthers.
Okay, Pitt.
The Pitt is definitely mine. They have Cincinnati on their schedule. They have West Virginia, Louisville, Clemson, SMU could be a different that SMU for Pitt might be tough.
Mm-hmm.
That is a very interesting game for me.
I agree.
But Louisville, probably North Carolina, Clemson, and probably SMU are probably the games that should be the most concerning. I don't feel like Cincinnati is actually a threat.
No.
I honestly don't.
If they figure out the defense and how to convert third downs, sure.
Well, yeah, if they figure out how to play football, yeah, you might as well just say if they figure out how to play football.
I was just trying to be nice, man.
But yeah, it's just one of those schedules there that I think they can make something happen out of it, but I just don't know. I don't know. I just don't know if I trust Pittsburgh at all. And honestly, I really do think that God, they might be gutting house if they have another bad season like that last year.
Yeah, old Pat might be
Yeah.
in some trouble.
Yeah.
I'm with you. They've got an easy schedule. I had them up at 4.
Yeah, I know you
Just the
did.
way it's laid out. So I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. Weird autistic noises. But I've got number 9 is Texas Tech.
Okay.
When I look at the way now, again, if this was last year, you got Washington State on that schedule too. I'd probably would have pushed them back a little bit, but
Mhm.
they start off with Abilene. Washington State's been kind of stripped of their pride and some players, and then you got North Texas, Arizona State, Cincy, and then you play Arizona right before a bye week. After the bye week, you go Baylor, TCU, Iowa State, Colorado.
Yeah.
Super winnable stretch. And then you have after another bye week, Oklahoma State and then West Virginia. Those last 2 games to me, that's gonna tell the story for Texas Tech. Obviously, you have to get through Arizona first, but at the end, it's right after a bye week. Oklahoma State, West Virginia. Oklahoma State is a team I don't think we've talked about really. We've mentioned them, but talking about them, yes, they've got so much returning,
Mhm.
but they were also so inconsistent last year. So if
Very,
they pick up that
very.
consistency, yeah, they're going to be damn good and a dangerous team. If they don't, and they're the same team as last year, they might get trounced again by 45-3. So that's what I'm just waiting to see what team is going to show up. Is Gundy
That's
going to
why
get them going?
Yeah, that's why it's kind of hard with the with these, picking the top 10 of the softest schedules because
Yeah.
I mean, if you go traditionally, if you don't just go off of what happened last year and just
Mhm.
traditional powers or
Yeah.
powers that be, you would think that a Stanford would be a tough game
Yeah.
or that even a Miami or a Virginia Tech would be a tough game, but recent history has shown us that they are not the teams of old.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that's why it's very difficult because there's a lot of turnover, folks. There's so much turnover at all of these schools right now with coaching staffs, transfer portal, kids going out, kids coming in. It's such a fluid situation in college football right now that it makes it even more difficult to kind of assess how these teams are going to do and kind of make these lists.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll just roll that into my 10th team,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's the Cuse, the Syracuse Orangemen.
Yeah.
They've got a really nice, easy schedule. They've got Miami, they've got Virginia Tech on there. I guess you could say NC State's pretty tough, would be a tough game as well.
Mhm.
But I mean, it's just because it's the Orangemen that it's tough.
Yeah, it's new staff and everything.
It's new staff. It's a new quarterback. I mean, granted, he's proven in big games, well, or lack thereof.
Oh yeah, Kyle McCord and how
Kyle McCord has experience with playing in the Big Ten. So I mean,
wrongly ran out of town, I might say.
ran out of town for a very similar quarterback.
Some would say.
Some would say. But anyway, moving on. They have Miami. They have Miami on the schedule. They have Stanford on the schedule. They have Virginia Tech on the schedule. Only real problem with this schedule is NC State and Miami, honestly. I don't think Georgia Tech will be a problem, although I say that, and usually once or twice every year, Georgia Tech gets one on me. Every single time. Every single time. It's very annoying, actually. But I think with them, with Fran Brown being the first year head coach of the Orange, having a new quarterback, I think that this team is in for a whole rude awakening, and I don't think that they have the moxie to get to the ACC championship this year at all.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be tough sledding just because of what they are, and if they find a way and they get some damn momentum, okay, maybe that's where this schedule plays in. Hey, maybe they might find a way to mess around and find a way towards the top of the ACC. So it'll be interesting for Syracuse. I had them further up the list, but yeah, top 10 guys, we got all these guys. We're kind of like bouncing off each other close. We're in the same wheelhouse. Again, ACC, Big 12, pretty easy schedules for most of these teams. Now, there were some that had some tough ones, but looking at the whole, pretty favorable. Now, Trevor, if you don't care, I'm going to talk about some of these teams outside of the top 10
Yeah, go for it,
that
man.
I had as favorable schedules that could be really easy, but I don't know. Some of these teams are just so weird to me. So this is what I've got. My first one was UNC. We talked about them. Next one that I have is UCF. Really interesting schedule. I'd say it's pretty easy outside of the Arizona and the Utah games and the way it plays out. But they do have to play Florida at Florida. Again, I don't like Florida on this, but it's interesting. And then they have West Virginia. So that's why they're just outside. If they pull it all together, pretty favorable schedule moving into the Big 12. They just got to get through a couple of good teams there. Another one, we mentioned them, Oklahoma State. Their schedule super favorable, the way I see it. Yes, they've got Utah early and Kansas State early. That's going to be the story of the season. Is in the first, well, they have Arkansas as well, and they're a funky team. So really, the first 5 weeks is going to tell your season for Oklahoma State. They have everything back to make a run and be in the Big 12 championship game, but they've got to put it together. So I've got them in a favorable category because I don't trust Arkansas, and then it's really Utah and the unknown of Kansas State, and then I've got Rutgers. Trevor and I, we've got a thing for them. Just little hot streak for them, and maybe it's the old Forrester talking. Cheers, but. But when you look at it, you got Howard and then Akron, the wild card of Virginia Tech, Washington. What is Washington going to be? We're not exactly sure. So that's why I've got them in a favorable. And I feel most that way about the Big Ten. What is this team going to be? Washington, Wisconsin. What are they going to be this year? UCLA. I don't have much hope for them. USC. What are they going to be? So that's why I have Rutgers favorable. And same with Nebraska. They're my other favorable team. When you look at the way it's laid out, UTEP, Colorado, Northern Iowa, Illinois, Purdue, Rutgers, all to start their season. And then you get a bye week before Indiana. And then you play Ohio State, UCLA, USC, Wisconsin, Iowa, all teams. Who are they going to be? So that's why I'm like, I wouldn't call them easy, but I call them favorable. If this team can figure out some momentum or whatever, and these other teams kind of, don't pan out the way, they're supposed to, it's a favorable schedule. That's why I have them as a favorable category and not as a soft. Missouri, obviously, we talked about them. The Bama game is the toughest, but I value Texas A&M a little bit more with the new coach and with Connor Wigman at quarterback. I think he's a good one. So he could cause some problems if, they're not prepared out of that bye week. And then the last one I had was NC State, which Trevor already spoke about. So, Trevor, anything on those teams before we talk a little bit about the group of five?
Yeah, I don't really have a whole lot of that team, but before we move on to the group of five, do you want to roll into real quick and give our lists on or do you want to do that after the group of five as far as the conference champions, easiest path?
I mean, if you want to go for it, please talk about it, and then I'll follow your lead on it.
All right, sure. So, I guess we could start with the Big 12 since they, yeah. So for me, I have they have the easiest schedules of the whole group, honestly. So I mean, for me, the two favorites for me going into the season will be Utah and Kansas. Out of the Big 12. I mean, it's I don't think it's any for like the next team. You could make a case for, I don't know, maybe Okie State as the third team in that group. Just because they have a pretty decent path as well, but that's who I have in my head and who I have written down as having the easiest path to the conference championship with the Big 12. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I can't just the way their schedules shake out. Kansas, I mean, that's to me, it's Big 12 championship, or game or bust.
Oh, yeah.
Mean, look at what you got, and then I've got Arizona up there as well as Utah.
Yeah, you're right.
For those three teams, I'm like, okay, You
They're
guys
all in my
have,
top. They're all in my top 10.
yeah,
They have
exactly.
easy schedules.
ACC, what are you thinking is the easiest? It's, I mean, if they work at
If
UNC,
they
but
work, it's UNC and NC State. I mean, if it works out that way, that'd be ridiculous. But
yeah, definitely I
um,
get NC State
I
as
definitely have. Yeah, NC State's like my. I hope that they do well. I hope that they get there,
yeah,
because I think that they will be a tough team to beat. I really have a hard time taking Clemson out of it, even though they haven't. They may not have the easiest path to the championship, but I definitely think that they're walking in as a favorite to
yeah.
get there regardless.
They've got a tough
Um,
schedule, but when you look at them, they still have a favorable route in the ACC to
yeah.
be that team.
I just think that ACC is going to have a down year. If you look at it, I was listening. I was talking to someone the other day. They're like, do you think ACC has quality quarterbacks? I'm like, to put it simply, is no.
No,
I don't think that ACC out of all of the conferences, I think the ACC is probably the weakest at the quarterback position at this point in time.
yeah,
And that doesn't necessarily bode well for just about any of these schools to make it to the championship and do well. And the only quarterback that has a decent amount of experience that I think will do well is that the NC State quarterback. His name's escaping me at this
oh,
point.
great, Grayson McCall now
Yeah, thank
transferring.
you, Grayson McCall. And I
Yep,
think that Club Me in the Face Klubnik will also have a good a good season as well.
makes the return, baby.
It makes the return.
Oh man,
But yeah, that's just the way I look at ACC.
yeah, I'm with you on that. NC State to me definitely is that. To me, that is it. They've got the chance. They've got a good quarterback. They've done well in the transfer portal outside of quarterback too.
Yeah,
They've
they
got,
have.
yep. To me, that's them. So we did Big 12. We talked about the ACC.
Hmm.
You want to do Big 10 next?
Yeah, sure. Boy,
Because I look
easiest.
at them. They're tough schedules. Okay, these
No
are
matter which way you slice it, there isn't really an easy path for the teams that you think that are probably going to be good enough. Because just so everyone's aware, the Big Ten does not have conferences or sides of so it's
yeah,
best records get in to the
yeah.
championship. That's it. So like when you look at it, Michigan's got a tough road, especially breaking in a new quarterback. Ohio
Hmm.
State's still, I mean, even with the giant that is going to be Ohio State, they're going to have a pretty tough road and
Yeah.
a very competitive schedule going on.
Mhm.
Um, eh, Part of
I,
me wants to say that Oregon probably has the best chance of getting to the Big Ten championship in the first year. And I
yeah,
hate saying it. But they are just as I know people aren't talking about it this way, but they are just as big of a monster as
yeah,
Ohio State, in my opinion.
yeah.
Uh,
From what they've done, yeah,
yeah,
I
from what
agree.
they've done, what they were last year, what they're bringing back, what they've brought in to the quarterback position and other positions on top of that, they destroyed everyone as far, in my opinion, in the transfer portal and NIL and everything like that this offseason. The elite quarterback that they have in Dylan Gabriel,
Hmm.
plus the quarterback in waiting in Dante Moore, who's a freshman going
Yeah,
into a sophomore season. I mean, Oregon's a beast that's just raring to take over the Big Ten, I think.
yeah, I agree. They're the best suited to make a run. Ohio State's pretty favorable schedule outside of, but they still have to play Michigan, Penn State. So yes, it's tough. Okay, I'm not saying it's not, but when you look at outside of those three, they have the ability to go in and walk into these games where they should pretty much be favored in every single one of them, except for maybe Oregon,
Yep.
depending.
This
But
this is
yeah,
this is definitely going to be a year where I'm not going to be like, I know people always called us this past year. We had a lot of people say, "Oh, you're just homers and
I know
you're just talking about Michigan to talk about Michigan." No, we're talking about Michigan because they were something to talk about.
they were the best team, and that they're going to get
They were
talked
the
about.
best team for a reason. Okay. So full disclosure for those of you that haven't listened to us before, Brendan and I are Michigan fans
Yeah,
to the bone. But I will say this: I will be very surprised if Michigan is in the hunt to get to the Big Ten championship this year. I will be surprised.
yeah, they've got a tough
They have a
road.
great defense. They have okay offense, but the question mark remains is at quarterback, and
Mhm.
how are you going to piece together the offensive line when you had 6 starters leave to the
Yeah.
NFL? Like, I mean, that's going to affect your run game and your whole offensive flow regardless.
Yes.
So that's just just me putting that out there that I don't think Michigan's going to make it to the Big Ten. Doesn't mean they won't make it to the playoff. I just don't think they'll make it to the Big Ten.
Yep. No, I'm with you. And so I'd say for the Big Ten, the best route is Oregon.
Yep.
Looking at it, I mean, they get Ohio State at home, and then they do go on the road to Michigan, which will be a tough game, but they should be favored. So we'll see.
Yeah, and the thing about Oregon to remember is that they do travel well.
Yes,
They're one team that does actually travel very well. Like it does traveling long distances doesn't seem to affect them as much as other teams out west.
agreed. And then last for me is the Washington. What is Washington? Because that'll be their third hard game, in my opinion. But it's what are they?
I
So
feel
yeah,
like I feel like you know what I feel like Washington is this year. They're like the Colorado this year, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that nobody knows what they are going to be.
yeah,
Like they don't even know what kind of offense they're going to run, who's going to be quarterback necessarily, what the offense is going to look like because they've lost almost all of their offensive weapons.
they've lost a lot.
So I
Yeah,
mean,
I
and
like
with
the
all the
coach.
transfers as well. But yeah, Jed
Will
Fish
Rogers should be it, but
yeah.
you don't know. And then yeah, I mean, it's just gonna be piecemeal. Like what are they gonna do?
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. So yeah, Oregon for me and Trevor for the Big Ten. What say you on the SEC? Who's got the cleanest route to the conference
I
championship?
already alluded to it in my top 10, but I really, really think that Mizzou has a very, very good opportunity to get to the championship game this year.
I agree.
I really do. They avoid having to play Georgia, which is always good. And I have a hard time thinking anybody else but Mizzou has an easier route to the SEC championship game just because of the way their schedule plays out and how much they have returning this year
Yeah,
from the last year's team that did very well.
yeah. I'm with you. Mizzou, Ole Miss. They play Georgia though, so that's kind of like So I think Mizzou. Um, yeah, they've got probably the easiest route. Bama is it. So I agree
Yep.
with you. It'll be Mizzou.
Especially if they get by Bama, because I mean, it's not
Yeah.
a shoo-in that Bama's going to be a problem because they could not be as good as people think they are going to be, even though they have all these people coming in.
Very
And
true.
speaking of Bama, Caden Proctor, Jesus,
Yeah,
I wanted to throw this in. I wanted to throw it in because it's so funny. It's such an Iowa thing to have happen.
yes.
By the way, is to have a guy a 5-star transfer out of Alabama because the coach retired, just to find out that the culture in Alabama is better. So he wants to go back.
Yeah, he's already re-enrolled. I mean, I don't. You know, we might need a Trevor rant on that one. Trevor, you might need a tee off on that shit because that's ridiculous. But
It's the most ridiculous thing ever.
good Lord, man.
I hope they don't. I hope they kick him off the team.
Yeah, I
That'd be
wouldn't
great.
want it. I wouldn't want it, but
I wouldn't want him.
I mean, the depth helps. Whatever. Yeah. Well, yeah. So I think that's it for.
Yep.
You know, right now, obviously, we're going to get way more in depth on conferences and teams, and maybe we're going to obviously do the pretenders, the contenders, and dark horses like we did last year. Let's real quick talk about Group of Five, and because obviously they have a automatic qualifying slot for the conference or for the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
If I can get my words out. So these are my teams that I looked down. I'm just going to go by conference. When I pulled them up, Tulane was the first one that I had from the American. They've got a pretty favorable schedule. When it all boils down, yes, they play Kansas State and Oklahoma, but that's outside of it. That's not in their conference. Conference-wise, they could run that damn thing, and they might split a game with Kansas State and Oklahoma. They are a dangerous team to play if you are not ready. But they are back to back, so it's tough.
Yeah.
But because last week I talked about Tulane being one of the toughest schedules. but they have a opportunity to make a run. My other one from the American is UTSA. I know they lost a lot, but they've got a really favorable schedule in conference. When I look at it, yes, they do play Texas State, which is going to be dangerous, and then Texas right after that. But again, that's outside of the realm. Now, I'm not saying they're going to make the playoffs, okay, but they have a chance if they do well, they play well, they've got good pieces. They could easily make a run for that top ranked, power or group of 5 team. And then I've got Liberty and Jacksonville State out of the Conference USA. Those are two teams. I know Liberty's a little bit different this year, but they still pretty favorable. Yes, they do play Appalachian State and Jacksonville State, but they have a chance to make some noise. And then we mentioned Jacksonville State. Hell of a last year. I mean, I love what they did last season. And, the way it lays out, Louisville's their toughest game. The way the schedule with the bye weeks and everything, I like how that lays out. They might make some run. I don't know if they might still be banished from playing a bowl game or whatever, but I don't know. Either way, I like their schedules. Toledo and Ohio from the MAC, just two teams to watch for. Ohio obviously, probably doesn't have the greatest shot at making the playoffs, but they have a favorable schedule the way it works out. And then when I get down into the Mountain West, watch out for Boise State. I'm sure a lot of people have already said that, but their hardest game is Oregon. Okay, they do play Washington State, which still has, some solid players on it. But Oregon early, it's at Oregon. But after that, bye week, and then you got a pretty solid schedule moving on. And then Air Force, they had a chance last year. They were doing so damn good, and then they fell off. They got shot down. Unfriendly skies. They were flying the unfriendly skies. And poor Air Force. But they have a chance when you look at it this year to beat a Power 5 team in Baylor, to beat Wyoming, and then win the Commanders Cup again with Navy and Army. So Fresno State's out there, Oregon State. They have a good schedule that can make them really, really interesting and pretty attractive, I think, to a committee in the top 25 rankings. And then last for me, the Texas State and App State out of the Sun Belt. Texas State, watch out for the schedule, man. I'm telling you, they have every chance to go out and just jack people up and be right there at probably undefeated, in my opinion. Just everything they have, they could be your top team in the Power 5 looking for that slot in the playoffs. And then Appalachian State is my final team. And, it's just App State. That's how they do things. Yes, they play Clemson early, but watch out for them. The rest of their schedule lines up pretty nicely. So that's what I got for the group of 5, man. I like talking about it. I can't wait to dig more in on the group of 5 when we talk about, who the best teams are. These were the most favorable routes. Who are the best teams? We'll talk about that probably maybe next week. We'll talk about it and let you guys know. But Trev, you got anything on the group of 5 guys or whatever?
Not really. I hope Texas State does what you think they're going to do and just wreck house on everybody.
It makes me excited. I'm like, I want that to happen, man. But yeah, like you said, we will dive more into the group of 5. Just want to throw that out there. A lot of interesting teams. Sorry, James Madison, you're not on my list. You've been wrecked.
You got to prove it first.
Yeah,
you got to prove it first,
especially after losing your whole staff and team effectively.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all I got, man. It's going to be interesting digging into these guys and really, getting more in depth on what the best teams in the Power Group of 5 will be. And then again, we are going to get in on everything else that you could ever hope for when it comes to season previews, at least, the way we see it. So guys, I think that's it for the night. Trev, anything?
Nah, that's it. Just like, follow, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Be sure to send us messages, folks. No matter what platform you're on, send us messages about the questions, any concerns about your specific teams, and we will try and roll that into all the episodes coming up in the 2024 outlook going forward. So just be sure to send Brendan and myself messages. These are our Twitter handles here. And right. Yeah. Well, there we go. Right there.
It's mirrored. It's mirrored
that way. Yeah, it's mirrored.
It's somewhere on the screen.
That way. Anyway, just
Jesus.
send us a message, and we will do our best to put that into the mailbag, and we'll touch on them as soon as we possibly can.
Absolutely. Again, thank you guys for watching. Again, you guys are awesome. We appreciate you doing this with us. First year's been fun. I cannot wait for 2024. It's going to be a blast. Y'all have a great night. Cheers.
Later.